I'm doing this video as a way to recap some of the highlights, not everything, but uh, some of the moments that I want to remember from 2018, since it is now 2019. It's January 1st, 2019 right now. Yesterday I sat down and wrote out pen and paper some of the things that I remembered. I am not going to go over all of the significant things. Some of these things right now I don't want, to get it on my thoughts about it on camera. But here we go. I'll just flash back to the beginning of January, about 365 days ago. I responded to a tweet from Tom Bilyeu. Tom does a really awesome show called Impact Theory. And anyway, his tweet was asking something about your intent for the coming year and what you thought about the previous year, 2017. So my response was something like, 2017 was my best year of my life, and 2018 would be even better. So that was the first time in my life where I've had anything, putting out to the world that I have an intent for the coming year. I'm not a person who does, New Year's resolutions. And just in the past few years, I have tried to set goals. Shouldn't say tried, I did set goals. Some of them are, or most of them are really long-term, huge goals. So it's kind of like inching up on progress. But also in January of 18, I made a commitment to quit my full-time job and go full-time on my own business ventures. So I also set a date for that. So for sure I would quit my full-time job by July 31st. I started a new dating relationship on, actually exactly 1 year ago. This woman came to me. I wasn't really looking. I was interested in dating, but I wasn't looking. I'll put it that way. And I fell in love, like this, like red hot inferno, like, and then it ended in less than 2 months. Wasn't my choice, but this person is gone from my life. Time to move on. I had made a commitment to read a book a week. I want to think back and say that maybe lasted probably through. I know I didn't. I don't think I ever actually did that. But I was reading books with the intent to learn. I read almost no fictional books this year. And when I was reading the books, at least, probably the beginning half of the year, I was taking notes. Things I wanted to share with the world, things that I wanted to share with certain, I guess people, they say, in your circle. And I took notes. So I could do some writing about it. part of the studying that I was doing, and a lot of the studying I did wasn't just from books, but I listened to, and I still listen to podcasts and look at blogs referenced in these podcasts. And still going into 2019, I'm very, very, very interested in how the human body responds to food, environment, including toxins, and that can be how we respond and change actually physically in response to people around us without, like laying hands on one another, but like the attitudes we can pick up on from conversations with, people around town, people in your family, your coworkers. And I wrote down a really important phrase that I learned from Dr. Mark Hyman, which is, food is medicine. And that's been a really big thing for me in the past year. Another highlight, which I've actually unfortunately fallen away from, I was paying for business coaching. My coach was Coach Michael Burt, and I bought his book, Person of Interest. I strongly recommend that for you if you have any interest in being, a better business person. I'll move on now. I have been really actually kind of fallen away from this. I'm still doing it, not as intensely, but the bulletproof diet, which is basically a diet that's very high in assorted forms of fats, and very, very low on sugar, super high in vegetables, very little fruit, and kind of like protein, not mass market meats, but again, that goes back to the food is medicine thing. And I was, one of the things that I really latched onto and integrated into my life for at least a time was fasting, like fat fasting, not like nothing but drinking water kind of fasting, like, but and it's not for religious purposes. It's just intermittent fasting, and that actually served me in a massive way that I didn't think I would need to rely on. I have been tracking my sleep and really been focusing on getting better quality of sleep. I believe for looking back on 2018, since I use an app to log my hours of sleep, I'm sitting at over 7 hours of a night on average, maybe more like 7 hours and 15 minutes. And there were a whole lot of days, especially toward the end of 2017, when I was only getting less than 6 hours a night. And that, even just increasing my sleep time by 45 minutes to an hour, as I kept up doing it, I could not only feel better, but I could see that my body was really responding well to better sleep and more sleep. In 2018, I made a commitment to learning and writing. I really find a lot of enjoyment and pleasure in writing, and then sharing my writing with the intent of educating. Another highlight of the year, this was, I believe I did this in May. I went to Warroad, Minnesota for taking some college credit examinations for a program called Manufacturing Foundations. This was for the Marvin Windows and Doors. So this was the company I was working for full time since what was it? November of 2015. So beginning of 2018, that was my full time employer, and so Warroad, Minnesota is the kind of the home base, and I had heard from a lot of people just how massive the place is and how many kind of like wonders they have to offer if you're interested in manufacturing of windows. So I got to do that and got a pretty comprehensive tour of their facility. In March, it was my first time visiting Ferguson Books and More in Grand Forks. This is a for they sell books primarily. They sell they've got like plastic model vehicle kits, like they do airplanes, and anyway, primarily it's a bookstore. That was really fun. I used to go to bookstores, and I remember as a kid going and actually buying computer software, computer games at bookstores. Some of these bookstores are, they're gone. So I really thought it was important to me to go to this bookstore. So in the March through May time frame, I started to get more and more agitated and dissatisfied with myself about this commitment to go full time with my own business on July 31st. Yet I was very stressed out with my job in Marvin, and very, very anxious to quit. I had money saved up, so I wasn't going to be, unable to pay rent and things like that, at least for several months. So it was kind of like, and I had a conversation with my boss there that, I want to quit. I'm not going to do it right now. So I gave let's call it 3 months notice. I mean, it was a long time of notice. But then actually on the 1st of June, I decided I wasn't going to go back. And I very strongly felt like I'm not going back to this place. It's not a fallback option, that I would say it's stupid saying of burning the ships, like this entrepreneurial idea that you walk away from a job and the only option is to make your business ventures work, meaning profitable, and it pays for the roof over your head and whatnot, and you're not going to go back to work for a corporation. So I mean, I had this intense dissatisfaction, and I thought that the solution was to go out on my own. So again, June 1st, I left Marvin that day. It was a Friday, and I thought I was never going to go back. On June 5th, so the following week from quitting my job at Marvin, I knew that my brother-in-law Aaron and his son, my nephew Ira, were coming to North Dakota. They've lived, with my sister in faraway places, so it wasn't wasn't an opportunity, for visiting them that I wanted to miss. So it wasn't a long visit, but I'm grateful that we got to spend some time together. So I'm talking about June now. I did skip something that happened in May. I found out about a meeting that was in Grand Forks. That's about 1 hour drive away from here. This meeting is called Lunch and Learn, and it's at lunchtime, normally on a Thursday, when I would have to be at work in Grafton at Marvin. So I decided I'm going to take off time and go to this meeting, which is it's held by this organization called Greater Grand Forks Young Professionals. I knew I wasn't likely to know anybody in this meeting, but I figured these are the kind of people that probably think similar things that I do about being an entrepreneur, business, making a contribution to the world. So I went to this Lunch and Learn in May, and I was told that, hey, after this meeting was about to conclude, and somebody there said, hey, I think you should check out this co-working space by the river in Grand Forks, and it's called the 701. So I didn't know this person, she didn't know me, and so that kind of went on my radar about co-working, and I'd heard of the concept. Come to find out, I've walked by this co-working space several times in the last year, kind of wondering what it was. Okay, so June 10th, I went to Ferguson Books and More in Grand Forks for a book signing, and the author is a guy from Jamestown, North Dakota, named Scott Bintz, and he wrote a book called Principles to Fortune. I had a good conversation with him at the store, and really good. He has a lot to offer about culture and business, and starting a business from basically nothing, and doing it in a small town like where I'm from, and turning it into a business that really positively impacted a lot of people's lives. And then Father's Day, for that, I got to be with my father, both my parents and my son, and we went to Icelandic State Park. Had a really good time there. I'd like to think about those memories. I made a commitment to adding more people into my life, my network, my circle. So I wrote down the Lunch and Learn, 701, which is the co-working space, 1 million cups, and SCORE. SCORE, I come to find, is it's a several decades old organization, which is retired executives, people who have run businesses successfully, and they are volunteering their time to be a mentor to young, maybe I shouldn't say young, but to mentor people who want to start a business, people who are in business and they need some help. So I that was a referral from somebody who's part of the company that runs and owns 701 Co-working. So I'm really grateful for that recommendation and that introduction. And August, right in the beginning of August, I did this really awesome vacation. I was invited by my good friend Brian to go to this this metal band tour that was stopping in downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that was a really good opportunity for the two of us to see a band that he invited me to see at the end of 2015, and I had to decline that invitation because I was just starting my new job at Marvin Windows, and I knew there was no possible way that I could take time off. I'm sure you know how that goes. So yeah, I had a really awesome time on that short vacation. It's kind of the first vacation I've taken when I was self-employed and I was making my own schedule every day, and it didn't matter one bit to me that I took off midweek, when normally I would have been stuck to the calendar of a corporation who needed me there to get things done. So I'm really grateful that I did take that opportunity instead of just staying home. During the warmer months, which in this state, North Dakota, there aren't that many in any given year, but I did a lot of walks outside, just around the neighborhood, kind of exploring a little bit, and part of that was to get the sun on me, which I've learned is important for synthesizing vitamin D into a more beneficial form. But I can think back now. My mom always tried to get us, me and my sisters, to go out for walks when we were kids, and it's. I heard recently that I think it was adults in America will spend 90% of their lives indoors. And I can understand how that could happen, but that's like you have to make a point of getting outside. You get your body moving, you get to breathe in fresh air. Hopefully where you live you have fresh air, and you can enjoy that benefit. Okay, so I'm almost done. I only have a few more things that I wrote down, but so June 1st I quit my full-time job in Marvin, and then I was intending to, since I'd have many more hours any day and every week, every month, to focus on prospecting and showing people, or figuring out how I could help people with the products and services that I have for sale. I figured if I just spent more time on it, that the income from my business would scale, and I wouldn't have to be so dependent on my savings to keep things going. It's the way businesses work, right? Well, I thought my savings would get me going till the end of this year, and I figured if I can't make my business work in 6 months full time, I guess I'll worry about that later. But by August, I was already concerned, deeply concerned about how am I going to make my rent payment for September. And, well, I was stubborn, and I thought I could sell assets. I had bought a really, really nice, powerful, very powerful computer, a laptop computer, with business funds. That was one of the first things, other than the speakers and such that I sell for mobile audio systems. That was one of the first things that I had to make the hard decision to sell. And so really sucked, but I got rid of that. And I had to find out that I really had no choice but to talk to my parents and let them know that I'm having a hard time. And then by September, just like the only logical thing to do, because anyway, I made the very hard decision to go back to Marvin and see if they would take me back. It was a really good decision, and the fears that people are going to look at me and think that I failed, or they're going to tease me about it, like, hey, looks like you had to come back, huh? Like, really, none of that happened. I got this lesson that from talking to people, I was surprised to find that some people there didn't even know that I had left. And it had been 3.5 months. And that's kind of a humbling thing. The place employs over 450 people, but I guess somehow in my arrogance, I thought that I was going to be missed more than I was. So I guess that's one thing. I don't know if you need or have gone through some kind of a life lesson like that, but the ego can get you in trouble. I mean, it's definitely a lesson that I want to remember. Really big part of 2018 was the SCORE mentors. Damon John, one of the original sharks on the show Shark Tank, he's been quoted saying life is a series of mentors. And I've had literally a series of mentors because of the SCORE organization. So I definitely want to keep that up in 2019 to continue with the meetings. I need to execute on some of the suggestions I've been given. It's really good to go in and have an hour to talk with mentors, people who have dealt with the things that affect all of us as we try to make something happen with a business venture. Even though, both sides of my family, my parents' families have been business people, I guess there's something really nice about talking to somebody who doesn't have that family tie, and yet they can offer some help. And then lastly, I wrote down just some words or phrases. Uncertainty, waiting until payday, hungry. Unfortunately, I spent a lot more days than I would like in 2018. Not sure when I was going to be buying food again. And because I had been doing the bulletproof diet, and which is a way to get your body burning fat instead of just relying on glucose, on sugars. So the times when I didn't have a lot of food on hand, I was able to do some extended fasting and still have clarity of thought to get things done. Certainly there were days when I was feeling more stress than I wanted, as well as anxiety. But because I was willing to ask for help, and people delivered help in different ways, I'm doing a lot better. I'd have to say for sure that I had at least short-term feelings of depression. That's not for the first time in my life, so I was able to recognize that. But having the stability of a regular paycheck, it's like going back to a full-time job, which it is. I do have a full-time job now. It's not as bad as what I was feeling in the first half of 2018, the first 5 months. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I'm grateful that I have my family. I'm grateful that I have friends. I'm grateful for the people that I've met because of my business. If you happen to be one of my customers, one of my clients, and you've somehow sat through, I see it's 33 minutes now, and I'm not going to cut this video down. If you somehow sat through all this, then clearly you must have felt some kind of connection between the two of us, and I'm grateful for that. So 2018 was a good year. It had some really massive highs and some really low lows. So let's see what 2019 brings. Take care.